The following is a presentation of KSL Sports. First and 12. A total roundup of BYU and Utah football and the expanded Big 12 Conference. Subscribe to the First and 12 podcast. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry on KSL News Radio.
Hour number 2 is off and running on this, I should say, Football Tuesday here on First and 12. If you miss any part of the show, you can subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, also the KSL Sports app, KSL News Radio app, so many different ways to listen to First and 12. So we appreciate all of you for tuning in, however and wherever you're listening. Let's get into our Big 12 power rankings. Let me just tell you, there is a lot of change this week.
The Big 12 Power Rankings, a weekly rank of all 16 programs, from the elite to the bottom dwellers.
Well, it's always a big one when you have your number one team from the previous 2 or 3 weeks, which is where Utah was sitting for us, tumble down the rankings there. So do we go top to bottom or do we go bottom to top? I can't remember how we usually do this.
For this week, let's go from the bottom up.
Okay, I like it. We know who's at the friggin' bottom.
Yes.
Oklahoma State just lost their head coach, although maybe they move up one spot. Just
That's a good point.
Yeah, for Mike Gundy. Mike Gundy moves out. You go, yeah, you know what? I like their
boost.
style. I like their style. I like what they're doing there. That interim they've got there, that O-line coach or whoever they're going to bring in.
Who's the Ed Orgeron at Oklahoma State that will fire them up as an interim?
I'm interested to see how that job is going to get filled and with whom it's going to be filled. It's crazy to think. But Oklahoma State, I mean, the absolute depth. They lose to Tulsa for the first time in Stillwater since 1951. People were wearing leather helmets back then. Kansas State at 15. The Wildcats thankfully had a bye this week. Otherwise, we would have been tempted to put them maybe below Oklahoma State. But they're still down there at the bottom. West Virginia, they tumble a little bit because we had them up just a couple of spots in the previous week because they had won the backyard brawl. Losing by 31 to Kansas is not a good way to kind of keep that ball rolling. I think they got humbled. I think we kind of found out that that's a little bit more along the lines of who they are there. They have the ability to maybe get an upset here and there, but, man, Kansas is a good team, and West Virginia got absolutely pummeled.
13 is Colorado, who got a good win, bounce-back win against Wyoming, but still, I think this Colorado team's got some flaws. It's interesting. I think that this Colorado team as a whole is better than last year.
Yeah.
The depth is better. But the top-end talent is clearly missing compared to what they had last year with Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders. But there's good depth, I think, on this group. But I just think that the defense is having some real issues. And even giving up 20 points against Wyoming kind of seems like that was a little bit of a disappointment in some respects in a win.
We had a question on this one, but we both came to an agreement on this next team because I think we both agree they're not the number 12 team. I don't think they're going to end up at the 12th spot, although they could. But I think Baylor putting them at 12 feels right because they've lost 2 football games. They're 2-2 on the year. Yep. They're those are 2 good teams they played. Auburn beat them by 2 touchdowns, though, at home. And then in comes Arizona State, who beats them at home. That should have been one of those that they go, we can make a statement here. They didn't do it against Auburn. They didn't do it against ASU. I think they're a pretty decent football team. I even think they might be better than a couple of teams that are in front of them right now in the rankings. But they're 2-2, man, and they've lost 2 massive home games so far this year.
If we're going to, go in on the AP voters for ranking, Illinois still after giving up 60-plus points or ranking Notre Dame with 2 losses, we gotta live up to that.
They got to tumble down.
They got to tumble down after 2 losses. And also, too, it gets magnified when they're losses at home, and that's what's happened to Baylor. 11 is Cincinnati. I think, again, I feel like we like the Cincinnati team better, but I feel like that's the one program since we've been doing this show where it's just like, when are you going to have a moment in this league? Like, they just have nothing that really just, whoa, what a moment for Cincinnati. Maybe we'll get that as Big 12 play starts to settle in. 10 is UCF, and on the flip side, they had a moment this weekend taking down North Carolina and Bill Belichick. They are terrible, North Carolina. They're not in this league.
No.
But UCF is, 3-0. I still think they're kind of limited a little bit, and I think they'll get humbled at times in Big 12 play. But to go 3-0, I think that's a great start for Scott Frost and that team as they kind of continue to just pluck along and try to stack up wins.
Yeah, and UCF, they're in a tough spot. They lost their offensive line coach this week unexpectedly, too, at only 50 years old. And I think they're going to rally around a lot of those feelings and a lot of those things that happen. But reminds you that football is not the most important thing there. But Scott Frost right now, good start, 3-0 in version 2.0 of him. Number 9 is Arizona. And we still don't know what to think about Arizona. Like, I look, they're winning games, and I think they're tough. They have a lot to go from last year's disappointment. They keep moving up just a little by little. Houston's kind of the same way, who we have at number 8 on the list. Those are two teams who are very similar, where we're like, are they turning a corner? Have they figured some things out? I like Willie Fritz. I like Brent Brennan. I like both of those coaches. And they have talent on their teams, but the question is can they sustain whatever they've started right now at the beginning of this year?
At 7 is a 6-spot drop for the Utah Utes from number 1 to 7 after that loss to Texas Tech. Utah lands here. I think it's a combination of the loss paired up with maybe the headaches off the field. We'll see if that has any sort of carryover into the weeks ahead. But Utah at 7, I think just the teams ahead of them are, playing better right now.
Yes.
And then also, too, the way that Utah lost was just really surprising, too. I wasn't surprised that Texas Tech scored 34 points, but for Utah to end up only with 10, that shocked me.
And to do it at home and to have Kyle Whittingham afterward kind of be shaking his head. I think the thing that shocked me the most, and he said this too in his press conference this week, was in a million years I wouldn't have thought that we'd have lost the trenches. That was one thing that about this team you go, I don't know all the answers with this team, but for sure they have an amazing offensive line. That I know for sure. And then they even proved to be lacking in that game. It's insane.
And then Fano gets called for an illegal man downfield.
And a hold later in the game. I mean, he had bad penalties. He's supposed to be the best player on that dang team.
And that's just surprising because I do think personnel-wise and talent-wise, this O-line is the best that Witt's had, but you got to live up to it, and they did not in that game. Number 6 is Kansas. They thumped West Virginia. Great win coming out of a bye for the Jayhawks as maybe this is the year. Maybe this is the year. 2 years ago when we started this show, they were kind of the darling in the Big 12, and everyone's like, hey, Kansas fever, and maybe this is the moment, if Jalen Daniels continues to stay healthy, that they actually contend for the Big 12. Number 5, the defending champs, Arizona State. Nice win over Baylor. They are good in close games, other than if they're in Starkville. Arizona State's chugging along.
These next two, in the order that they're in, are going to get us harassed, and that's fine. Iowa State, who's undefeated, is number 4 on the list. But again, I don't know who they are. They're coming off a bye, so we're doing what the AP poll, I think, did too, where it's like, you were inactive, all right, you get knocked down one, right? Which is kind of what we saw this week. Iowa State goes to 4, and that allows BYU to go into 3. You really liked how that East Carolina game turned out. I mean, the defense is elite. The defense could be the number one defense in this entire league, and they've proven to be so far this year. But man, they're starting to figure some things out. They can be scary if that offense starts to turn a corner. If
Bear Bachmeier plays the way he did in the second half against East Carolina, BYU can get to Arlington. Bear Bachmeier was excellent in that second half. I thought. I really thought his decision making was impressive. I think there was times against Stanford and even, to a lesser extent, Portland State, where he maybe held on to the ball a little too long at times, kind of getting nitpicky there in those wins. That we didn't see that against East Carolina, and it just felt like he took a big jump coming out of the bye week. And I think also, too, what helps BYU is their coaching staff. They're really aligned right now, and I think that they are all on the same page, too, and they're well coached, and they're not making mistakes. They did have 10 penalties against East Carolina. I think BYU is this really solid football team where they are not going to beat themselves. And that was something that was maybe a trait of BYU's teams under Kalani in the past. That's not anymore. And I think that's something that can carry week after week. And in a league that's so volatile like the Big 12, where you feel like you can never get a sense of what these teams are week after week, BYU, you kind of feel like you know what you're expecting week after week, and I think that gives them a chance to maybe have a higher floor than some of these other teams in the league. At number 2, a team we've always liked since the preseason, but they're living up to it.
Yep.
TCU at number 2.
It's hard to deny the play-calling ability of Sonny Dykes, man. That guy's got an offense. It's one thing to have a quarterback who's able to sling it. It's another one that he has a target who's becoming a superstar. When you're able to get a guy 258 yards or whatever it was through the air and 5 touchdowns, when your quarterback, who's already really good, finds a best friend on that field, it's scary because that TCU team on the offensive side of things is a really, really good team. And it's one of those teams that you don't want to – you want to miss those guys on your schedule this year because TCU is going to be on the absolute warpath. And you know what's interesting too? TCU and Texas Tech don't play one another, and that could be an absolute matchup for Arlington. And we've had TCU on this list. TCU is my dark horse to win the league before the season started. We all know Texas Tech is good, and Texas Tech is our number 1 team this week. Well deserving for a team who has turned a crazy corner, and I think you're going to see a single-digit ranking here in the next couple of weeks for the Red Raiders as they get rolling through the rest of the year here. That's a really legitimately good team.
It is, and Texas Tech's defensive front lived up to the hype and all the money that they got, but they've got legit talent. I think also the roster retention, too, the players that they did bring back. It's just a really balanced roster for Texas Tech. And going back to TCU, too, they get a win over SMU without their top running back in Kevorian Barnes, who was out with an injury that he suffered against Abilene Christian. So to get a big rivalry win without one of your key guys, I thought that was noteworthy of TCU. These two teams at the top, I think, are the most talented rosters in the Big 12. And sometimes when when you're trying to sort these Big 12 teams, you just lean to the talent. I think Tech and TCU have the most talented rosters. Maybe Colorado's got high-end talent, too, with some of their old former 4-star guys, but it just doesn't seem like it's come together as quickly as Texas Tech and TCU. These two teams look really good, are going to be tough outs this season. That's our Big 12 power rankings here on First and 12 as we get ready for Week 5 action. Let's look ahead to what's on the docket for this schedule. We got some Friday night football and a busy Saturday slate. It's First and 12 right here on KSL News Radio.